Hello there, friends. Andrea with the Bangs here, and of the She Wonders Why podcast. Speaking of podcasts, I would really appreciate it if you would take a moment to give me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I always forget to ask. On to the main point, the main event. In today's chat, I get to speak with Chris and Matt, the hosts of Decoding the Gurus. I will be doing a little bit of decoding myself of them and their latest episodes. I last spoke with them about a year ago, and they only had about 3 or 4 episodes out. A lot has changed since then. They have garnered quite a following. They also have garnered some attention from said gurus that they have decoded or critiqued and have spoken to. One of them is a little-known podcaster, scientist, horseman of a sort named Sam Harris, I believe. We speak about that, among other things. So it's quite a show I have in store for you. Let me know what you guys think. I know Chris says that most of the watches I got on my previous interview of them were hate watches. So I'm curious. Let me know why you're here and what you think of the guys. Anyway, without further ado, here are Chris and Matt. Hello, Chris and Matt. Hello. Thank you for coming on to my YouTube channel / podcast. It's been about a year.
And what a year it's been.
What a year.
Yeah.
Yes, what a year. You guys, no, really though. You had 3, maybe 4 episodes out when I first spoke to you. And
I thought you were gonna say 3, maybe 4 Patreons, which is
I don't even know if you had a Patreon, actually.
I don't think we did.
You didn't.
We didn't at that stage.
At one point in the 3.5-hour episode of the Brett Weinstein one, I remember Chris giving a shout out. Hi, Mom. Thanks for listening this far.
Yeah,
You're
she's
the
given
only
up
one.
long ago. We've lost her.
Oh dear. Well, you've certainly gained a few others, though. So you guys, like, that's the first thing I'd like to go into is what has changed in that year for you with regards to. Let's be specific about the podcast. I mean, maybe you've had other changes, but let's stick to the gurus.
Well, our episodes have gotten slightly shorter, which I think reflects well on us.
Yeah.
It's been good. Look, we're still working through our massive back catalogue of gurus. So in some senses, it's still the same old. I think those very early episodes were kind of epic because we had some serious stuff to get off our chest about the Weinsteins.
You've been building it up to the brim.
But we've tried to move on a little bit from the sort of culture war-y IDW circle of characters, and because it's just fun and interesting to look at sort of online gurus and sense makers and self-help type people more generally.
Mm-hmm.
So our last episode was on Brene Brown, who is an American sort of self-help author and a psychologist, and she's definitely got nothing to do with the culture wars, and that was fun. So yeah, I'm enjoying the direction it's going.
Yeah, and like I think we've hopefully we've got a bit better at the putting things together in like shorter periods of time and that kind of thing. But I think in general, the level of success of the podcast, the size of the audience and the interaction and the feedback and responses and stuff, it's been really good and like probably much better than Matt and I would have hoped for. So that's been rewarding, and also I guess to some extent it's been interesting more recently to start to have some feedback or interaction with the people that we cover, for better or worse. That has been something that we were always open to, but considered unlikely. And it still is predominantly unlikely for most of the people we cover. But like the next episode we'll release is an episode with Chris Williamson, who was the interviewer with Gad Saad, and he has a YouTube channel, Modern Wisdom. So that's been an interesting development, I think, kind of speaking to some of the people that we've covered or, you know, are incidentally related through various things. So yeah.
We will get into that. Don't you worry. I will pick that up. Well, I actually because I don't know how to tell, because on YouTube you can just see the subscribers. It's just there. But I don't really know how to tell on like podcasts the numbers. Are you guarding those numbers, you know? Or are you okay to share how well you guys are doing? You're like, we mustn't become gurus ourselves. We don't want them to know.
Chris is very proud. He's very happy to talk about our metrics.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I also think that, like, when we started, you know, I think everybody that does a podcast or YouTube or that kind of thing, they're trying to find out what's the metric of doing well and not doing well, right? Mm-hmm. And like you say, on some of them it's visible, right? Because you can see the view counts or whatever. But you also, it's hard to match, like, which channel is the one that I should compare myself to. And I will say that I reached out to a couple of podcasts that I really like and that are, you know, sort of in a similar vein to us, and asked, you know, is it okay to ask what how many downloads you get, or, you know, what can I and they all said, like, everyone wants to know, but nobody talks about it, right? And
let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the problems is we don't know the amount. Like, there's all these different metrics you get, right? Like how many per month or how many per episode and that. But like the last month, which is our most successful month, we got over 100,000 downloads.
Wow.
Which is good, and like
it's very good.
You know, it's been a steady positive trajectory, and like I think tonight we're imagining that our success would be, you know, around about 10,000 or so. Like that. This was the height. I mean, so we're doing much better than we thought, and so like metric wise and all that, I think we're doing well, but like we're not like anything like the big top successful podcast, but we're just not a complete failure. that's
how Irish are you? You're just, like, I can't really give myself a compliment, so I'm just
I think, like, if you put, like, you know, I don't know, but
not a complete failure. Like, that's what I'm gonna call the episode. Gurus,
like,
not a complete failure.
I think there are, like, you know, take Eric Weinstein or something like that. I think they probably get like 50,000 downloads on the day of release or something like that. Okay. So that's a order of, I don't know. I think I vaguely remember him saying that, but that's a, you know, that is a thing where somebody has a huge success and that can be their main income or whatever. We're not that. And so, yeah, we're like very happy with the level of success, and long may it continue. But
continue.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely, from when we spoke to you, mm-hmm. I would not have expected that we would have, you know, kind of achieved those kind of downloads within a year. So mm-hmm. that is good. I'm happy about that. That's good.
So wait, okay, so Matt, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was such a niche thing. The topic
niche, but that's the thing, is like niche, but then all the people in that niche are like, yes, this.
I guess, yeah. There's, like, you know, there's the people on Twitter that we hang out with and stuff, and we're all hyper involved and so on. But so I guess I'm a little bit surprised. But maybe, you know, that's the thing with podcasts, that people are quite happy to hear about something that's a bit niche and unusual and do a bit of a deep dive on it. And, you know, we have, like you said before, we do have a good time doing it, and we simply enjoy talking with each other. So,
Yeah.
I think people pick that up, and, you know, if it's entertaining and, you know, it helps people go to sleep or do the dishes or something, then I'm super happy with that.
We get a lot of messages about that.
You're like, oh, do I want to listen to one of these like specific sleep apps like Calm, or do I want to listen to Decoding the Gurus?
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. This is like, we're sleepy for a lot of people. That's it.
Well, like the thing is, I think you should do an experiment where you just never get to the topic and you do an entire show.
No. Oh,
where you just
trolling,
you just keep going and you're just doing the banter, and then never get to the topic, and then just see if anyone notices or complains.
Notice? No, of course they will notice and complain. They say,
I think they're gonna be like, this was hilarious and such a delight and got me to sleep right away.
Yeah.
Your accent for our listeners is quite interesting, but they're like upper class English gentlemen.
I suppose, I know. I've been doing a deep dive.
Americans can only do one foreign accent. So.
No, it's like the mid Atlantic. Like, no, yes, upper class Hollywood.
That was mid-Atlantic.
No, I don't know.
Yeah,
like Jimmy Stewart or Katharine Hepburn. I don't know.
You must get it as well, Andrea. That like, there's. I mean, we get an overwhelming amount of like positive reinforcement. You know, people say they like things and that kind of thing, and we are glad for that. But you also get people who are like, you know, get to the point. Cut the banter.
It's true. No, it is. No, yes. I just asked this question actually on Twitter. Like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer people to have a little banter, a little chat, or do you prefer like, okay, hi, hello, nice to meet you. Let's get into the topic. And most people said they prefer straight into the topic, but lots of others also said it depends on like the chemistry, I guess, between the people. You guys have lots of chemistry, so
that's I think that the like it depends thing is valid, because there's lots of podcasts that I listen to and I don't mind the banter because, you know, I like the people. There's other ones that I do mind the banter. I just want them to stop talking and talk about the topic. And but with Matt and me, I think it isn't really a choice and there's no democracy involved in it, because like we are only gonna do it as long as it's, you know, enjoyable for us, and like and part of it being enjoyable is that we, you know, waffle and have a chat about things. So like if we didn't do that and just like went straight into things all the time and that, it would I feel like because we've got the little bookmarks now that people can push the button.
Oh yeah.
That's
there you go.
It's everyone who wants to skip, just skip. And
okay,
otherwise...
wait. Can we talk about the ads? You guys are so... You're like, hey, do you like it when people try to sell you things? Well, buckle up, because that's happening right now.
Yeah, that's at least everyone knows what they're
Chris, it's
getting.
you. You're the worst. Not worst. It's like the best. You're the worst best at being the most. Here's a cheesy voice that I'm selling you something and you know it.
Well,
I think the only way we could sell something is ironically. That's the only way we can possibly do it. Yeah.
We got told off.
I guess to be fair, you need like the funny man and the straight man, you know? So like Chris is like the hey everyone, and then here comes Matt.
I
so
thought my
here's
ad
the thing.
Better.
What?
Yeah, they got like more zippy, but
the music in the background definitely helps.
Yeah,
I come
we did
with my
it a couple of times, and we didn't release it because it sounded like a hostage video. And,
oh, please release it as like a blooper.
Yeah, they were bad. So the one that got released was like yeah, we found like a relatively happy medium, but actually,
Did you pull out your Liam Neeson voice where you're like buy this? Like I can't do it, but like I've got a particular set of selling this particular item of skills. So
yeah, but these ads also have to say, and that like it wouldn't sound normal if we just suddenly start talking like that because well, I guess that's the point of an ad, but yeah, I think we have decided like we're not really. I mean, advertising is nice and all that kind of thing, but we didn't start to create like a podcast empire. So if advertisers come and say, do you want to advertise this, and it's something we're okay with, then fine. But we're not. I think Neil or I are okay with advertising in a way that we don't feel comfortable with. So like, if people don't like that, then they kind of have to accept the package.
It all depends how much the penis enhancement people offer. If they come to it with a big package, then we could talk to them.
Oh God. Okay. Why did I bring up the ads? I'm starting to. I feel bad. I'm feeling like, oh, Chris, I'm sorry for putting it all on you. I think it's because you're doing it the way I would if I had ads, and I actually am like, oh, could I be this cheesy though? And then you have proof you can.
Well, I will say the advertisers are incredibly fond of you doing that. So maybe.
Really? You've gotten feedback.
You have to be perhaps more successful in order for them to be very okay with that. But but there's no option. There isn't another setting. I cannot set myself to another.
It's like your goodbye. Bye. Remember how you used to say bye?
That's hard. And that's like 2 seconds. So imagine a 1 minute chatting like that. It sounds like a hostage video. We did do serious ad reads and it doesn't sound right.
I really, really, really want to hear them now. Okay, well, maybe someday for the Patreon people.
Yeah.
They'll be like, we want the hostage ads.
Okay. Yeah, hostage ads.
So I think that I don't even know if people are like, yay, I'm so glad you're going over the way in which they do ads, Andrea. But I can't help it because I look at like what you're doing from what has changed from the last time we spoke. Also from, I make a YouTube channel and a podcast, so I don't have ads, and so that's why I'm just like, whoa, they have ads, and this is how they do it. It just is, it's on my radar. I just can't help it, so you're here now, so I get to talk to you.
We are fine. Like, you can make it an annual reoccurrence. We can
No, I really do. You guys, you don't even... You don't even know because now you will know because I'm gonna tell you. So you're the most popular one. Actually, so after I release the video, that one of course is the most popular. But then after it, when I'm slow to like release the next one, it just like whatever is being randomly watched, whatever shows up. And your guys' video is the most popular one all the time. It's like got over 3,000 views for like, which is like pretty good for my channel. And usually it's like, 10, 15, 20, like on a random day just being watched. And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't been talking about it at all, but what?
I think it's because you have good SEO or whatever that thing is called, because if I put in like Decoding the Gurus into Google, what often comes up is that like YouTube interview. So I think when I annoy someone online or someone causes like hassle, that they're like, who's that fucking guy? And then they type it in and they see your video. So it might be that like if we continue to annoy people, they will continue to find.
You're like, no, it's not popular in the way you think it's popular.
Yeah. It's hate watches, Andrea. It's hate watches.
And they're like, wait, but this looks like a really sweet young girl that they're speaking with. Like this gal, she looks reputable. What is she saying? Oh, what are they? Okay, I'll listen. that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's probably it. They get the sugar with the bitter coffee.
Bitter, cranky men. Oh, across the Atlantic or across the Pacific. Okay. So, well, now I know that that's what's really happening. Thank you for
That's just my hypothesis. It's just a hypothesis.
Well, I'll see how this one goes. We'll see the hate watches or whatever. Whatever. It gives me watches.
Years to come, Andrina.
So, what?
I will annoy people periodically for years to come. So
okay, well, good.
I'll let you know the next time I annoy someone, and you can check if there's an uptick.
I'll ask. Okay, so leave a comment. Hello, hate watches. Will you leave a comment to let me know? And then we will see who's correct in this situation. So specifically, let's get back to your podcast, specifically about the feedback you're getting from your gurus. And I'm thinking of the Sam Harris situation. Like, wow.
Sam?
Yeah, I know. You already did this bit. You already did this bit, you guys. You did the bit already.
I'll never stop doing it because some people take it seriously.
Sorry, I'm so bad at letting bits play out, but
no, you're right. I run that into the ground, but when I tweeted like we did a podcast with small indie podcaster, I took like some perverse pleasure in the amount of people that responded saying small indie podcaster.
I can see you would. Of course you would. This is why you get the hate watches. Because of the perverse pleasure. Like, they can see. Oh, goodness.
The internet just keeps delivering indisputable proof that so many people do not understand sarcasm and irony.
Okay, well, we'll just go in that vein. So you were able to procure an interview. No, he sought you out. That must have been what it was. I'm going to stop pretending like I'm joking around here. Okay, so we're not going to play that scenario out. I was going to be like, I'll play along and we'll call him a small indie podcaster. No, I want to know how did this all occur? You said you gave out a call to all your gurus you have spoken about. Did he hear the call? Did he contact you? How did it go?
No. I mean, well, he listened to the episode. I know because one, he told us, but also I knew that at the time because he followed us after the episode came out and quickly unfollowed shortly after. But there's
a lot of information that goes with the follow and then unfollow.
Yeah, well, but that wasn't that. I was surprised that he listened, to be honest, but I wasn't surprised that he would unfollow after a while because we're like fairly critical. Maybe but then in the case we spoke with Dave Pizarro from Very Bad Wizards on a like kind of special episode about Weinstein World, and then Dave has had episodes with Sam and is a friend with Sam, and he had listened to our episode about Sam as well and contacted me afterwards to say he enjoyed it and thought the criticisms were like good or thoughtful or whatever. And then after the episode, he said, have you ever reached out to Sam about talking to him about his app or the criticisms that you made? And I said, I mean, no. because
why would we?
Yeah, because like, where am I gonna drop him an email to his like website or whatever? Like, I don't. He's guy must get millions of messages, and then Dave, took the hint and said, I can ask him if he would be interested in, and so it basically the whole thing is just Dave Pizarro asked him, would he be willing to have a conversation, and he said like, send me, give me his email address, and then I reached out and talked about, and to his credit, entirely to his credit, it wasn't really I didn't require much convincing, and he also didn't really put any restrictions on topics or anything like that. We said we'll talk about the app, and then we'll talk about broader political stuff and criticism, and that was it. And he didn't say, this is off top limits, or I don't want to talk about that. I was actually surprised. We've had other people who are much smaller than Sam who have, like, said, I don't want to talk about this or that, and so yeah, that was it. It's not very exciting. It's Dave Pizarro. He's the man behind the curtain, pulling the puppet strings of the internet.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, to have such power. Well, I mean, that's who you know, and people, saying, hey, I know so-and-so. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Okay, well, would you like a chance to talk about it?
I think because we had, like, Dave Pizarro on, who Sam knows, and Dave is, like, positive about us, and also, like, Robert Wright and some other, and Jesse Single and some, like, relatively known people. I'm sure that made a difference as well. But Sam does occasionally do random small podcasts.
To his credit, like, that's cool. Like,
yeah, it is
that he would do that.
And it was very nice. I mean, he came on. The conversation was what it is, but we talked for 3 or 4 hours, which was, that's a significant chunk of anyone's day. So it really is to his credit, and also the downloads for that episode were, at the time, actually, it wasn't that much of a big jump, but it's kind of like you said, like, consistently over time, it makes a big difference. So that's by far our most popular episode, and like, Sam will have made our podcast more popular by coming on, just by the size of his audience. So regardless of our disagreements in that, he was doing something that he didn't need to do to, like, defend himself. So I think he deserves credit for coming on, and we thank him for that.
Thank you, Sam. Oh, I'm sure Sam will be, like, perusing this episode, so.
That's right. Yeah, he'll be in here taking notes. He's that kind of guy.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm trying. I've thought of, like, oh, who would I, the old IDW, because he's not in that anymore. He's ejected himself.
That's right. He handed his card in. You just give that.
Yeah, he did. He handed it in, and so which I kind of respect him for. But anyway,
we did too.
Yeah.
We did too. We recorded a thing complimenting him and saying lots of nice things about him at the time.
Yeah, I remember because you mentioned to him, you're like, no, we have said some nice things about you.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, Matt was here to get that in at the start.
You're like, I just need you to know. We're, like, assuming you haven't listened to all of our stuff, and so I'm imagining you've missed the nice parts. But no, I've been like, oh, what if I could get? Because I've had this guy named Jay Shapiro who he made his.
I know him.
Oh yeah. So yeah, he made Sam's one of a documentary that Sam was in, and so he knows him, and I've thought about, like, and just because you have a connection doesn't mean that they'll say yes, but I'm like, what would I ask him? Like, that's the thing, is you have to have an angle. I mean, you guys very much have an angle for him.
The thing that
Chris
really
could share some of
likes
his
talking
criticisms
about.
with you.
Okay, oh please.
Yeah, he really likes talking about right-wing media and the problems and issues there, and why Tucker Carlson and stuff. That's the stuff that really gets his gears going.
It's not. It's not what I escaped from. I escaped from the culture war over a year ago. I think near the time I interviewed you guys.
Let me ask you something, and congratulations, by the way, on the escape. That's admirable. But that episode with Sam Harris. Okay, so you listened to it.
Okay, so I have to be honest, I've only listened to half of it.
Well, half of it, that's already, it's probably as much as it. But so, I'm curious, how did you find that episode? The fact that you tapped out halfway through.
No. I know I do need to. I do want to finish watching it, but it's the episode I was listening to just before I was chatting with you guys. So that's why I didn't tap out. I ran out of time.
You're like, it's a long episode.
Well, I just was like, oh, shoot, I need to catch up, and then I didn't have enough time. But anyways, I thought, I honestly, I think that the parts that I really wanted to listen to is near closer to the middle and end, because you were saying when it got a little bit more debate-ish, right? And I didn't get to that yet.
The start is very good, and like, you know, in terms of the response, and I think he gives good answers.
No, he does. No, he wasn't like offended by any of your questions. You know, like he wasn't like, well, ugh. Like he was. Well, I mean, he was the ever stoic Sam Harris with that voice that doesn't change. But I did like that he. I will say, like, so he was very like, I want to take what you're saying and address it. So he wasn't dismissive in the least. So I actually really appreciated that. But some of the things, and it's my bad because I don't remember if I've listened to the one. I may have listened. It was a while ago. I don't remember the things that you were talking about the Waking Up podcast. And I may have even listened to it. I just don't remember. So he was referencing things, and the things that you were talking about were very specific to that. So I
Insider baseball.
It was a little bit, yeah. And so I was like, oh, I think that he's making sense, but I think I would have had to go listen back to that particular criticism to help me get it a bit better. But there were some things that I actually was like, whoa, he is not holding back at all. Like the thing about the gurus in, say, India and like abuse. And he was just being very and I was like, ew, where is this going? But he is the way he is. He's like, I'm being really super honest about it. It's not okay, but at the same time you can get something from it. But like personally, I look at that because it took me a minute to sort of process. So that's the part that stood out the most to me. So that, like, for me, in the bit that I ended on, that's the thing that like I took, that I'm still mulling around, you know. But while it was happening, I felt very like, what are you guys gonna say? But you kind of were like, we kind of want to move on. But for me, where he was coming from, this is what I guess I would ask him about if he ever came on my podcast. So where he's saying, okay, so it's not good, it's actually horrible and bad, but you can take some positives out of it. To me, that's like, as a religious person, I would take that as what you meant for evil, the Lord meant for good. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that's what is the story of Joseph at the very end. His brothers sold him into slavery. He ends up in a jail but then ultimately that jail ends up having him being at the right hand of Pharaoh. What you meant for evil, his brothers, the Lord meant for good. So anyways, and I'm not even trying to be religious-y about it. That's sort of like, isn't that, it's just, that's a thing. It's a spiritually thing. Like, and some of the stuff he talks about that's the thing that I was actually frustrating to me. And like, the way you talk about the good that you're, and this is me getting a little critiquey on my end of things. He sounds religious and spiritual when he talks about his app. And the sort of like mumbo jumbo that he talks about that religious stuff is, I'm like, you sound the exact same when you talk about the good that is being spread with your giving the free, having it be free. His model is not something he would say to others, right? He's like, this is not a business model that is coherent for anyone else. But this is so important. This is so good that I want anyone to have access to it, and I'll even let the scammers in. How religious do you have to be? Like, to be like, I have a message that I want to send to the world. And sorry, it's not a message, it's just meditating for 15 minutes. But like, I still want the world to get it. And I'm not against him. I am like totally in the space where I'm like, yeah, me too. But like, Jesus. So I just think again, there's a lot of things. But I don't want to get into... See, that's the thing is what I'm describing. I am not in the league to go toe-to-toe with this man. So I'm like, I'm not. I mean, I'm actually even acting as if I could get him. I probably couldn't. Jay Shapiro would be like, Andrea, like, you're nice and I didn't mind giving you a chat, but no. But either way, so okay, that's the thing. Those are my little critiques. So they're not even critiques because they remind me of like religious or spiritual practices, and he might be okay with the word spiritual on his end, but you guys, I'm supposed to be interviewing you, so whoops.
No, that's all right. You answered.
But that's my. So what do you take from that? From my feedback about that episode?
Oh,
yeah.
We'll have Matt go because he hasn't chatted as much.
I'll take a turn. Talking. We're really big on turn taking. We've got a newfound appreciation for sort of back and forth, and somebody speaks and someone else speaks.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a slight reference to that episode, but the look, there's a charitable take here. I mean, it's good to give, and there's a freemium type model, and it's good to kind of give it away and to people, and for people to pay if they can, that kind of model. So it doesn't really. I mean, after he explained it, I don't think it really raises too many big flags for me. So I kind of, for my part, retract that bit of criticism which we made, which was pretty mild, to be honest. Going back to our original one, it wasn't the main thing that we're talking about. The other part of what you said is that Harris and his app is definitely guru-esque, right? And it has to be. Like, there's no way it can't be. It's a system for improving your way of life, for changing your state of mind, for getting a new special way of perceiving the world and getting more in touch with reality. So it's not I think it's just descriptive to say that it is guru behavior. And one of the things with our podcast is we make a really clear distinction. There's a bunch of toxic things that we identify among certain kinds of secular gurus, and we've got our gurometer, which has all the different things that they do.
Yeah,
we have a gurometer. It's science, very scientific. But there's things that any guru does, whether they're toxic or not, and one of the things that they have to do is be confident. Like, you can't be wishy-washy. You can go, oh, maybe it's this and maybe it's that and maybe this will be helpful, but I'm not quite sure. No, you
I
have
could never be a guru. Yeah.
No, that's right. Me neither. Much too ambivalent. So yeah, he's a guru, but that's probably okay in some respects. Chris has got a bunch of criticisms of his more political decisions and his sort of selective attention, and which is sort of a separate issue, I think.
Mm-hmm. Chris, your turn.
I think, like you said, that I would take the. I think there is a lot of parallels with religious type beliefs, and where a lot of our criticisms came in the original episode were just about that conflation of introspective insight and linking it into a kind of broader political and social thing, like a whole package. And I think he did a relatively good job of clarifying that he wasn't trying to do that, or he wasn't saying. I'm glad that he did say that, although I'm not entirely convinced that he didn't do that and that he doesn't do that at times. But saying that, like, you can do the practice, but you don't have to accept his politics. That's very good, right? Like, I think that's a important thing. And I thought that the half that you've listened to, which was mostly about the app and introspective practices and stuff, that I don't agree with all of his takes there, but I think he has a kind of legitimate position, and he like clarified things well during that discussion. So my criticisms would mainly not revolve around the introspective practices, except the note what you know, which, like, there is stuff there which comes across as like, it's fine to be religious, but you should maybe acknowledge when you're relying on a type of introspective faith. But he wouldn't see it like that.
Right.
But I think it's notable that a religious person did notice the parallels, and other people who I've spoke to who have, either are religious or spiritual, they kind of get what he's saying, but they're like, yeah, well, we all think that, right? Like, we, Yeah. So that's all. But I for that part, I didn't have. I think it was, his clarifications were good and helpful, because he said, I'm not saying X, Y, and Z, and
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So number one, I'm always happy to be the religious person if you ever need. Check in. The other is, so the rest of the, well, it doesn't have to be the rest of, but that's the part I didn't get to. But for the episode, did it go how you wanted it to go?
Matt,
Your turn.
Yeah. Look, in comparing it to conversations we've had with other people, like Robert Wright or Dave Pizarro or whoever. I mean, it's a little bit different because we had a bunch of criticisms of Sam. Sam was responding to criticism, so it was always going to be a bit less.
Yeah.
There's going to be a little bit more arguing, a little bit less dialectic sort of going on. On the other hand, I think, I get the sense with some people that they are more comfortable with giving monologues rather than the back and forth of a conversation. That's not the worst thing in the world. So yeah, look, I think it would have been I felt like in the second half they got really, like, I mostly listened to it, by the way. I didn't get to talk, but
you mentioned that in the intro,
which is fine. And
you popped in to be like, okay, that's all we've got for today. Bye.
Yeah. But I mean, these guys really got bogged down in this sort of the terminology of tribalism. Okay. So Sam was accused of being, somewhat tribal, but sort of his presentation is that he's above all these things, right? That it's just applying rationality and logic and so on. And
oh my goodness,
okay,
degree. I probably would have a lot of these moments during it. That sounds like you can't be above it. You're in it. Okay, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, like we're all human beings, so we're all kind of in it. I think just wallowing around in the subjective mud. But I think that they wouldn't have gotten bogged down if maybe there'd been less monologuing and just
tossed it over to you, Matt. Maybe.
That was my job, just to sort out those kind of gridlocks when they happened, and I failed.
Dear. Well, yeah. Well.
But there was, and Matt can't be held responsible because, like, first of all, we were messaging back and forth, in the chat, as we do in interviews anyway, to kind of work out, okay, I'm gonna ask this next, and do you want to say something? We find that that's a much easier way to kind of plan out things, and so we were doing that, but because of the nature of the way that Sam speaks, which Matt pointed to, where he kind of speaks for an extended time and will often veer on to a next topic while he's talking, and that's just the way his brain works. But the nature of that means that, like, maybe you ask a question which he sort of responds to, but then he brings up like 3 or 4 points and then makes a claim that says, and if I do that, finishes by saying, so tell me why it's like that. And then you need to respond to his question. You need to go back.
And that's why you guys pause and you rewind. And that's why you do your podcast in the way you do it. So that you can pause him and
it's very different. It's very different if we did an episode on Sam than interacting with him. But so the nature of that means that, then you have to how to interview people, Andrew, but you have to decide, will you let those points go, or do you, if you disagree with what the person said, do you go back and say, well, I don't think that's right, and you didn't even get to your original question because
it's a schmozzle. No one wins.
Dynamic of that, I think, like Matt said, we knew it was going to be a little bit like that, but I think there's 2 different ways of interviewing someone, and one would be as like an interview, right, where you're not there to present your opinion, you're there to kind of like talk to them, and so even if you disagree, you might voice your disagreement, but kind of let it go. But it's different if you're doing a debate and you're presenting like an alternative side, and I think in the second half we bumped up against that. Which dynamic are we supposed to adhere to, right? Are we there to listen to Sam tell us why we're wrong, or are we there to kind of push back? And it was a little bit of both, but it's kind of hard to do a debate if it's an interview, and maybe that was
I know it's the
frustrating
nature
for
of
both
it,
sides.
and that's why Matt should have gotten a little. He'll get a little hat that says moderator.
Yeah, it really was Matt's fault when you think about it.
No, next time he'll get the hat that says moderator, and then he'll be like, "All right, okay, so wait, no, we can't move on here, Sam. You got 1 point, and so now let Chris speak to that 1 point, please, and thank you."
But Andrea, did you? Oh, you won't have heard it, but I will say, and it's like inside of baseball. It's quite funny. At the very end of the episode, Matt tries to do what you're suggesting, which is a kumbaya, like, well, look, we all have different opinions about this issues. Everybody's a bit biased towards their friends, and when Matt did that, Sam interrupted him to say, "No, I'm not biased." And then Matt was like, "Okay, no, I'm not talking about you specifically, Sam. I mean, and then Sam went on like 2 tangents, then went back into a kind of
I have to finish this. I have to now.
Yes, so Matt then said, "No, I'm not saying any of that. I wasn't trying to," and so I just want to point out that was like, Matt tried to do that, and it led to like 3 exchanges and a monologue, and
so that
not
was
him
viable.
just trying to say everybody is bad. We're
okay,
all,
okay, we've got I've got a solution, and it's like, totally unbiased, and like, bring in me. I am a totally like I'll be like the dum who's like, wait, Sam, can you explain point 1? I didn't quite follow that one, please, if you don't mind. I'm the lay person. Can we just backtrack 5 points, please, and just stick to that one, just so I can keep up, please, and thank you.
Yeah.
That's what we need. Although it will be a 6-hour podcast.
Right. Oh, I'm sure my way will definitely work and won't make it 8 hours. But anyway.
Yeah. But so it was an interesting episode for us. It's to Sam's credit. It came on. We have our like complaints and stuff, but he does as well. So in all things considered, I think he deserves more credit for coming on than the way the conversation went. I think we just see some things differently, and it's always going to make things contentious if you're telling someone why you think they're doing something wrong.
Yes, 100%. So, do you guys think that he would come back?
Not immediately.
Well, no. Okay. Well, okay. Sorry. I guess I should first ask. So, I mean, I assume you'll be continuing to look over his stuff and then do critiques of his stuff. And then eventually, do you think that you would reach out again for him to come back on, do you think? Or is let sleeping dogs lie? Or
Well, look, it's always possible, but, we've got so many characters to cover. And,
right, there's so many more others than this small little podcaster, Sam Harris.
With Sam, maybe with the passage of time and whatever, as political events and stuff go on in the US, he might be interested. Like, he ran back conversations with Jordan Peterson and various other people, but I guess it depends where we end up in his mind. Because if we're Ezra Klein and Robert Wright, then those people are, they're off the limit. So it depends how he sees us, as like good or bad faith.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Do you think he regrets going on, or what is your feelings there?
I don't know.
Okay. Chris, do you know?
I mean, I think he expressed ambivalence, that he didn't know if it was a very important conversation or a completely meaningless waste of time. But that in itself,
that's funny. Okay.
Yeah, so I think he probably, I don't think he found it particularly enjoyable. But yeah, but I think it all depends on the feedback that you get and stuff over time, and how other people say it. If he gets lots of people saying that was a waste of time and it's the worst, 3 hours, I don't know why you bother speaking to those people, then he won't. And if he gets people saying that it was a worthwhile conversation, then maybe he would. But we are not, like, we'd be happy to speak again, but I don't have any desire to do that myself for like some time. So yeah, there's no issue to speak to Sam again from our side.
It would just have to be like the right time and the right subject.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if somebody else goes mental, that he's like strongly endorsed, maybe if more and more characters in this network, Paul Bloom becomes an anti-vax loon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Matt, what were you gonna say?
I was just going to say I'm looking forward more to talking to people like Robert Wright. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a fun. We're going to cover Bob as a guru. We've also had him on.
I'm sorry,
guest.
guys. I don't remember who Robert Wright is. Can you remind me?
Robert Wright is an author. He wrote the book Why Buddhism is True, and before that he's been a long-term
I've
pundit.
maybe heard. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how is he from? Is he like Western though? With the
Yes,
Buddhism
yeah. So he's he's actually not that far from kind of Sam Harris style of Buddhism being a useful insight, but he's an interesting guy because he has a whole metaphysical system that kind of a philosophy.
Has he been on Rebel Wisdom? Am I making that up? I don't know. It sounds like the kind of person that they would.
It is like someone they would have on Rebel Wisdom. I don't think they've had him yet, but he's around. But the interesting thing is like he's very willing to engage with criticism, and he's also genuinely self-deprecating. So he's an unusual guru in that respect.
Okay.
So he's an interesting character from our perspective because we really like him interpersonally, and we've had an interview with him, like kind of discussing things, and he's produced an episode now in part because we said we want to cover him as a guru, and we were asking like what content to cover, and he released an episode which was outlining his philosophy, partly because we prompted him, but then when he suggested that, we said we can't use it because you would be making it with the knowledge that people will look at it. But so
right.
He introduced it, explaining that he's making it. That we introduced it and blah blah. But now we probably will use that because he didn't think that we'd use it.
Look at your influence, you guys.
It's very very meta.
Yes. Yeah. That's the right term for it. It's like, wow, look at you, like creating gurus within gurus, and I don't know if that even makes sense. It's really meta. Okay, so when will that be covered then? Is that an episode that's just waiting to drop, or you're still working on it? Or
we haven't done it, but we've listened to the content, so we will do so. We have to prepare the clips and all that, and we have a backlog of interviews and episodes to do, so we'll do Joe Rogan next.
Oh, have you done him yet? Is this the first time? Yeah, this is the
first time.
Oh, okay. I'll have to listen to that one. Okay. Which episode are you gonna use for the clips?
The one with Jocko Willink.
Okay, he could kind of be his own guru.
Yeah, Jocko. He could, but there's like lots of options with Joe Rogan, but I thought the Jocko Willink one works because they're both in a way, somewhat similar with the whole like testosterone male improvement guru side of things, and they're also both fairly to the right without openly being to the right. So I think they're an interesting combined team to look at.
Right.
And Joe is an interviewer, so we can't really do him independently because he's always with a guest.
That's true. Yeah. So I think that just trying to think about the criticism you guys get. It seems like a lot of people think that you're just out to interview. Your critics would look at you guys and think, oh, they're just calling people they don't like gurus. Yeah. So, but you were just saying with Robert Wright, you're like, well, we really actually just like him, and we classify him as a guru. And whatever. And,
Yeah.
and so, and I, like, okay, so I've listened to only your first episode on Jordan Peterson, so I don't know how kind you were to him, and then I think you've done another one since on him, but like
less kind the second time.
probably you're like, Andrew's probably dropped off in listening. We don't have to worry about being kind anymore. No, just kidding.
He was talking to Brett Weinstein.
Oh, well, that's
sorry,
why. Okay, well, that never
bad
plays out.
things in him.
Okay, so with the first one, you were actually not terribly rough on him. You were like, hey, this doesn't make any sense, but it makes me feel good if I don't think about it too hard. And I actually do. I still really, really like Jordan Peterson, actually. And so particularly in that one, but like in other ones, you're not always necessarily against. You're just sort of like, let's make sense of these particular sorts of people that end up becoming elevated. And I'm sure that it's easy to get pulled into certain, to be like, oh, everyone's against me because I'm so successful. They're just jealous. I'm sure it's easy for gurus to get in that space, which you guys see all the time. But do you think that you get uncharacteristically sorry, that's not the word. Uncharacteristically isn't what I'm looking for. It's, do you get characterized as like bad guys, in their team, on the teams, as like the bad guys, to put it in layman's terms.
Yeah.
So how do you get away from that then?
Oh, look, of course we do. I mean, and it's natural that, we criticize popular people. So the people who are their fans will respond angrily and criticize us back. We've got a pretty thick skin. I mean, we criticize people pretty harshly sometimes. So we can't get our feathers all ruffled because people criticize us back. So that part is totally fine. I think that people misunderstand criticism a little bit. Like in the political arena, if people are criticizing someone or some figure, then it's because you're against them. You're against what they stand for, and you're supporting the other side of whatever the argument is about. In academia, if you criticize someone's work, you're paying them a massive compliment. Right?
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So that's like the fact that your work is influential enough to be criticized and be put under that lens, and they're spending their time trying to think of objectives to it and so on, then that is an opportunity for you to either respond and show them how they're wrong and that your stuff is actually good and they're mistaken, or they can be pointing out valid weaknesses and flaws in your approach, your model, whatever, that you then can focus your attention on rectifying and improving on. So, so that's how I think about criticism and including a critical podcast.
Yeah.
So look, I think sometimes people mistake these things. I mean, like we're critical of people we like, we're critical of people we don't like. We can what we try to do is put our own sort of preferences and our own just feelings about things to one side as much as we can, but we also emphasize that nobody can do that perfectly. There's always going to be things that just rub, I mean, we did a reasonable job. Like if you take someone like Rutger Bregman, who was and he's a very sort of lefty progressive character. He's speaking to a lot of political points that, are fairly, dead on the sort of moderate left kind of, they hits all of my moderate left wing sympathies, right? But his logic is terrible in some respects, and he misrepresents a lot of the evidence. And if you can just put yourself in that sort of academic frame of mind, then you can criticize someone like that. And it's not about, do you support where they're coming from, what they're trying to accomplish? It's, are they making mistakes?
Okay, so if it's normal or a compliment even in academia to criticize someone's work, why are you not getting praised more by the people you feature in your episodes? And I know I'm saying that with a smile, but I actually am like, wait, I'm confused then.
Well, most of them are not academics. Even the ones that are academics, they're technically academics. The role, like Gad Sad, for instance, right? Um, his role, his what he does is not academic, right? It's polemic, it's writing popular books, it's being a culture warrior, it's being popular and takedowns and so on, right? So I think yeah, I mean, I don't think people look, even academics don't academics are human too. So if you criticize somebody's theory at a conference, whatever, they may well, respond badly.
Yeah.
But deep down, everyone kind of knows that it's much better. Look, just like Oscar Wilde said, it's always better to be talked about than not talked about. So the worst thing is to just be ignored. Really, that's the worst thing.
Oh, I know, but was the internet around when that phrase was coined? I don't know. I'm guessing I'm thinking of the cancelled people, the people who end up getting.
Yeah. Look. Of course, there's lots of bad attention it's very unpleasant to be cancelled. Now I'm thinking of people that are attempting to have an influence in some way, shape, or form. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you think that so it's not just Sam Harris that you have been able to interact with? There are others who are responding or even pre-responding, since what you were saying with Robert, that he's kind of the meta thing that happened. You guys explained. So, sorry, what were you going to say though, Matt?
Well, no, I was just going to reply to you actually, which was that another person that we covered sort of incidentally in the Gad Sad episode was a young fellow called Chris Williamson. Now he has a podcast now called, what's it called, Chris?
Modern Wisdom, I think.
Modern Wisdom.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've heard of him before. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, he was essentially cheering on Gad Sad and, was fanboying on Gad Sad. Gad Sad, in our opinion, was being complete, saying a lot of stupid things, right? So, we ended up saying a lot of pretty mean things about Chris Williamson. So to his credit, right, he didn't respond angrily or flames or whatever. In fact, he didn't respond at all for a little while. Eventually reached out to Chris and explained, and we subsequently followed it up with this interview that we'll be releasing next. And look, according to Chris, he took some of our points on board, and actually has since changed some of his sort of what you call editorial policy. Based on that. On the other hand, he pushed back in what I think was a pretty fair way, in that we didn't give him the benefit of the doubt in any way, shape, or form, and we basically.
Oh, really? You guys? No.
Yeah, we were pretty harsh, and so on our side, we took that on board,
Yeah.
So for us, that was a really positive thing.
Yeah. No. It really is, in the sense that you're able to have that bit of an influence for you never know which of the gurus, it sounds like, oh well, we'll see how they respond, if they ever respond. Well, the fact that they're responding at all, do you feel like that gives you, I know you're not out for credibility, but does it give you a little bit more credibility in when some gurus try to throw you under the bus as just random nobodies? Does it give you a little bit of clout, I guess?
Well, yes, it definitely does. That like if Sam Harris or somebody decides to come on or that kind of thing, it's harder for people to say that nobody's paying attention or that kind of thing. But I can't say that I want it to be the case that every time we release an episode that we get into a feud or whatever with the character that we cover. I'm kind of sometimes quite relieved when people don't pay any attention, and that is the general pattern, is that they don't, or they just block, right? They just if they notice the episode, they just block, or and I think that's probably the smarter decision in most cases. But I'm not so concerned about, I think, like Matt said, as our kind of influence grows or that kind of thing, we have to be concerned a bit more about the dynamics, about if we are featuring someone with a much smaller audience or that kind of thing. We have to be concerned about that. But in terms of the like impact on the public narrative or whatever, I think that what I would prefer is that instead of, you know, the kind of thing which is these like vendettas and stuff, that instead it's nice when we have an impact where more critical approaches come towards someone or attention. And like a good example of this where I think it has happened and I've considered it very positive is that when we started the podcast, yes, there were people critiquing Brett and Eric, but those tended to be relatively peripheral or not so easy to find. And now there are very good, detailed breakdowns, especially since, you know, Brett Weinstein has become kind of anti-vaccine relatively openly. So there's a lot more critiques that way. But in the case of Eric, you have people who wrote rebuttals to his paper, and you've had, you know, Robert Wright is, for an example, part of the reason we spoke to him was because he found the coverage of the Weinsteins interesting, and he wrote some critical articles as well. So I kind of like that impact more, that, you know, if we are able to encourage people to engage critically. And you asked, Andrea, about, you know, the covering bad, like, do we cover people just to kind of take them down a peg or two? And like Matt said, there's an inevitable bias in the people that we cover, that, you know, but what we've discovered is that that there are all different types of gurus, and that the gurus that we were initially interested in, which the kind of gurometer focuses on, this like 10 measure thing that we use, that is focused on quite negative qualities, the kind of exploitative online gurus with negative dynamics. And you can be someone who's a guru, or a public intellectual with a following that might veer towards, you know, a guru dynamic, and it not be exploitative and negative and full of conspiracy and that kind of thing. So I think that nuance and us covering different kinds of people in different kinds of spheres is important, so that people can, you know, look at everyone critically, but realize that there are some people doing things that are, you know, more exploitative and more conspiracy prone than others.
Yeah. Could I say one more thing to that, which is that, yeah, like Chris said, I hope that people do not take what we do as like sitting in judgment and coming up with the list of who's naughty and nice and who are the bad ones and who are the good ones. You guys are
not Santa Claus.
Yeah, that's right. We're not, you know, what we want to do is hopefully model and encourage people to approach everything critically. Stuff that's intuitively appealing, the stuff that appeals to your predispositions or your values, and pay attention to the way in which some things can sound convincing, and press all of those buttons. But actually, if you stop and try to be a little bit analytical about it, you can realize that you can, anybody can. You don't have to be a professor or have some kind of special technical expertise. You can spot the form of arguments that are bad, essentially. And you know, we all fall into that from time to time, even the best people. So yeah, that's what we try to do.
So okay, so I feel like we're, you know, rounding this discussion off, and so Chris, I think that we won't have to say goodbye to you. I think that we have like a nice little like 10-minute buffer. So yeah, I know you guys joked about how like, yeah, we're not gurus yet, or I don't know if you said yet, but like I am like, yet. Like, when will you guys reach? Because you don't have to necessarily be a guru to then be a guru. Like, some people just become popular. They just do because of whatever reason, and they get skyrocketed up, or it doesn't have to be a quick skyrocket. It could be a slow climb up.
Yeah. Or you could be a sneaky, underhanded guru where you tell everyone that you're not a guru and you don't follow me and one, but you kind of subtly do it.
And then I don't know which one are you guys? No, not really, but like you're in danger of becoming more and more popular. Like, you clearly, if we look at the growth from the last time we spoke to now, it's quite a bit. And if what's going to be happening in a year from now if we do our little yearly chat. Like, is there okay, it's not that you're going to be worried about becoming gurus where you're like, hey, here's a self-help situation that I think I can help with. But although you were just explaining about how you can be helpful with criticism or whatever, with critiquing, but it is something that you could become more popular than you expect. Lots of people listen to you. And you might not want it, but it might be thrust upon you. Like, are you worried about that? Or are you like, no, or we're just doing not bad? Or what did you describe it as, Chris? We're just not terrible. We're not failing.
Yeah.
We're just not quite failing.
But I think that's part of the answer is like, yes, there's always like, in the same way, like things like audience capture and that apply, and like social media dynamics, we are not immune to them in any sense. But part of the thing that I think makes us bad candidates to fall prey to the guru dynamics are that fundamentally what Matt and I are talking about are things that you can find in academia or like in general. Just, it's not some bespoke philosophy that we have. It's just applying critical thinking to a topic, and you don't have to reach the same conclusions as us. And our takes are that, our personalities are what they are, but fundamentally we're not offering something that's highly unique to us. It's
right.
It's like, just so you could replace either of us and look at the content in the same way, and you should notice similar sorts of things. So I think that's part of it. And then also, like with Robert Wright, there's a difference between people who, like, there's not, I think Matt and I don't have an issue with people who want to present a philosophy or to outline a kind of a worldview or even, give advice. That's not the issue. It's not about being an issue with being popular or of having a particular political ideology or those kind of things. It's all the other stuff that gurus do that is concerning. And in most of the cases, we either don't do it or we're actively opposed to it. And, there are parts where there's stuff like Patreon dynamics where you interact with people and, people are supporting you and that kind of thing. And there is always a parasocial element, but like, as Matt has often said, parasociality doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can actually just be that there is a genuine interaction. Like, a good example is Dave Pizarro, who came on our show. I listened to him for years, and he never knew I was listening, right? And
right.
That's the way that works. But then when I met him, I felt like I knew him, and the way that he talked was what I imagined it would be, because there is a degree where, yes, people can be exploitative and create a faux intimacy, but also you actually can get a sense of people through their content. And that, so I kind of think as long as you stay on the right side of that you just have to be aware of the dynamics and the influence and the power imbalance. And as long as you are, I don't think it's inevitable that you have to, go the way that, like, even Jordan Peterson has. Like, he didn't have to do that, Andrea. That's the thing that's annoying. He didn't have to do it.
Well, he's still around. Maybe we can just see what directions he goes in. You're like, we will be watching.
His current direction.
Okay. Well, only time will tell. And you guys will too, as you continue watching and reporting on gurus.
Matt, was that
what?
Yeah, I think that was fair. I think that was well said. Okay. The only thing I'd add to it is that, we'd both be terrible candidates for self-help gurus because of Chris. He's got obvious personality problems, and in my case, I've been known to deal with very bad hangovers by eating cookies in the shower. So these are not rules for life.
And you guys have each other to keep each other in check as well. I think that's also the key.
That's my girl.
Not at all what I was going for.
He's like so far, years, decades ahead. So
someday he'll teach you how to do an ad in a very natural way, And
Yeah.
maybe you will learn from him.
Good. Chris is my work in progress. He's getting there.
I'm his protege, like in the Star Wars thing, that I'll just like strike him down when he gets old enough.
You're the Anakin to his Obi-Wan, not the Luke Skywalker. Oh no, did I lose you? Did I lose you both in my closing? Hello? Are you still there? Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so choppy. Please tell me. Oh, hi. Okay. I'm like, let me end it
We're here.
right, you guys. Oh, okay. What a wonderful ending. I'm going to leave it in just because it's fun. Okay.
It's
Thank you
fine.
so much, Chris and Matt, for being on the channel for our annual catch up.
Yeah.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again in 1 year. It'll be
We
good.
will.
Yeah.
If you would subscribe, that would be the bee's knees.